Welcome into your alchemy call today. These are the calls I like to do every week, just these free community calls to discuss topics that you guys bring to the community chat inside of my app, or that you ask me on Instagram, or that you reach out and talk to me about. And so I've gotten a few questions this winter to talk about the shadow. And so I wanted to bring a conversation on the shadow through today, which seems always appropriate in the winter. So if you don't know me, I'm Kat Villain, the creator of this app. I teach a style of yoga called Katona Yoga, and that's pretty much what I have been filling my app with, is practices that really just help support your vitality, your well-being. And so the shadow is such an important key component of our practice, because the shadow is really what arises when we really do start to get in touch with ourselves on a deeper level. And so, I mean, you can type in the chat, like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word shadow? I would love to know about, like, we have preconceived notions about things, right? So when you hear the word shadow, like, what comes up for you? Hello, everyone popping in here. We'll see. We'll see if anyone is brave enough to type. But I'm gonna wait till a few of you type, because I don't want to go into it. Heaviness. Okay, thank you, Ashley. Yeah. Family trauma. Yes. Things I don't frequently shine light on in myself. Yeah, I love that, Sarah. Denise, darkness. Scary. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So our shadow is that which we cannot see, right? In winter, there are more shadows because there's more of this darkness, right? There's more reflective light because we're getting the reflection from the sun, from the moon. That is our source of light. So the shadow carries reflection, right? And so the shadow, like, sometimes it can feel like it's just such a big thing. Like when we hear about shadow, it is reflection of past experiences. It can feel like heavy. It can feel like, oh my God, the dark night of the soul. Like, here I go, I'm going into it. Will I get out of it? Or, things that we can't work through, or it can feel like, it shouldn't be there. We can have this energy with it that it's like not welcome. And so I really wanted to just like zoom out on what a shadow is, right? It is when the sun casts its light and there's something in the way that is blocking that light from going through to the other side. And so in our bodies, and in the body holds past experience, right? It's holding the whole spectrum of your human experience. And so in the shadow, what we see of the human, these are experiences that the light has tried to enter, and there's been a doorway, right, in which it couldn't get through. For some reason, I'm thinking of a form of protection. Yes, yes, because when we're younger, right, and so shadows will arise when there is unintegrated parts of ourselves. So for instance, let's say that, you were singing a beautiful song as a child and you were just in your full expression, and, maybe it wasn't sounding so beautiful, but to you, you were in your joy, the frequency of just that desire welling up through you and you expressing that desire. And if people were in the room, who cares? Who cares? You're just like ready to be your vibrant self. And then, your mom or your dad was having a bad day, or whoever's around you was just like, can you just be quiet? Like, you sound awful, or like whatever they say, right? Like, I just need quiet. I don't want to listen to this right now. And then your whole expression gets completely hijacked, right? And so as a young child, when we don't have the tools or the awareness of like, oh, that's just their thing and not mine. Like, I'm just going to keep singing outside, whatever, right? We feel hurt or wounded or abandoned, or we feel rejected, or we feel like our joy, right, wasn't good enough for this other person. So yes, it serves as this form of protection where we did the thing that was on our heart and we were so excited, and then that person that we trusted that was around us shut that down and told us it wasn't okay to be doing this. And I mean, there's so many ways that this can come out as a child, right? Like in your past experiences, even as we grow. And then the body is calculating, the mind is like, okay, when I do this thing happens, and it made me feel this way, right? Because it's this perception of feeling, and then your body or your mind is like, don't do that again, right? Because I need to feel safe in my body, and I don't feel safe when the things I love are being shut down. And so it serves of this form of projection. Yeah. And the shadow can arise, Nicole said, is shadow others' projection or a story people project on us? So projection, I'm gonna go into projection in a moment because that's a little bit that's a little bit more in depth. But so we have all of these ways in which we are navigating life so that we can keep our human feeling safe, right? So whether we did something and our parents freaked out and yelled at us, right? And we were like, whoa, don't do that again, right? Like so scared in the body that you're like now on eggshells, right? How many of you have ever felt like or feel like when you're around someone, you have to be on eggshells where you're like tiptoeing around something so that they don't explode on you, right? And so it's a way for our body to begin to be like, this is safe, this is not safe. When I do this, I feel unsafe. When I do this, I feel safe. And so we actually start to distort who we are around different people so that we can, in a sense, like keep the peace or feel safe, you know? And so there's ways that we begin to abandon ourselves, close that door to parts of ourselves that just wanted to express itself freely, and then that shadow now is like living in there. And it's really like when I really think about it, because a lot of this, like one of you said, family trauma, it is from, and a reflection of past experiences, it is from past experiences where we learn how to be in the world, right? And that is great because it was a coping mechanism that allowed you to get to where you are today. But the problem with the shadow and with these parts is that we continue to perpetuate the stories when we don't need to. And so many of you will probably feel this or know this or like are tasting it in dynamics, like family dynamics. And so, you know, we often come into partnership because there's like a hook of something that is reminding us or having something to heal in our first relationship, which was family, right? Mother, father, child. And so whatever that looked like, right? And so when we come into relationship, right, we have this projection or perception of how it's going to be, and we don't really know it consciously, right? Because that which is conscious is illuminated by our light. We know what that is, right? So it's not living in the shadow, but it's unconscious, and that's where the shadows are, right? And so if we grew up in a household where people didn't talk freely and kind of like repressed their emotions and it was very surface level, that's what we're going to know as relationship and relating. And so that's how we're going to come into it, right? But then it's going to start to pick at our scab of like where our wounds are. And then that's where, right, our past starts to arise through, right, relationship. And so if you don't see it, if you are not aware of it, if you're not bringing this to the light, which is what we're illuminating the shadow in this practice, because as we work through our body, we start to open those doors, right? Yoga is a practice of relating to the self, and in relating to the self, you're going to be in reflection, right, with the people around you. And so when we are opening that up and, you know, seeing it, we have the potential to heal it. But if we don't, we just leave it, right? And then, like, you know, you leave a relationship and you're like in the same relationship again, and you're just like, how does this keep happening? I keep dating the same person, because that wound is still there. And so how I like to see and work with, and actually, I just wanted to actually mention a few more things, because yoga is relating. And so that's where I really want you to know that, like, you know, we're doing the practice for our body, right? We want a strong body. I'm teaching you how to work optimally in your body so that life is easier, right? Because when you can move in your body with grace, with ease, like, you don't have to think about it, right? But if you're in pain, it's always going to be there and taking your energy. And so yoga, though it's like, oh, yoga feels so good, it's very confronting, right? Because you're learning to be in a relationship with yourself. And so when we're, you know, before we find these awareness practices and we are kind of like thrown into the matrix and told what to do, told what to think, told how to have a job, told what it needs to look like, right? That this is the set experience that needs to happen. Yes, right? When we're in that matrix, we don't really realize, and we don't really have a relationship with ourself, because we're not actually tuning into what we want, because we've been told our whole lives that this is what it looks like, this is what it is, this is what you have to do. Right. And so I'm sure we all can relate to that. Going into university, getting the job that we think other people want us to have, or that defines success, and it's not of our heart, right? It doesn't feel as fulfilling. And so yoga can be really confronting in that sense, because we are now having a relationship with ourselves. And when we actually start to ask ourselves what we desire, we probably wouldn't have that job. We might not be in that relationship. We might not be with this circle of friends. We might not want to be living where we're living. It's just not meeting our needs at a soul level. And so that's where all of these shadow parts start to come through, because these are all the parts that were closed off, right? That we said, oh, it's not safe to be this person. It's not safe to just sing my songs. It's not safe to play my music. It's not safe to think that I want to, like, do whatever your soul wanted to do in the moment, which was just express itself, just to be in its being. Of creativity, right? It just is, but we reflect, right? And so we know, we see, we can be like, wow, this is making me feel this way. And when you start to question, that is where you start to work through these layers of shadow. Like, do I need to react this way? Why am I reacting this way? And so we have a shadow because it really gives us the capacity to know, right? To reflect and to perceive, in a sense, the divine love that we are. And so it shows us where we aren't living in this pure expression of love, which is what is flowing through all of us. It's like, think of creative energy. It's birthed out of love, right? A child is birthed out of love. And so really when we're working with shadow, it's that spectrum of the duality of what is not love. And so when we're working in our practice, that's what we're doing. We are opening these parts of our body that were closed. And so the thing with the body and with yoga is that your body is holding all of this stored trauma. And trauma is a heavy word. So, just, you want to try to take the perception or the projection that you have about what trauma is out of it. And just know that, like, trauma or shadow or these dark parts of you are simply places that you haven't opened that doorway, right? You haven't been, like, embracing and fully opening yourself to that which is hiding under the surface, which often where your shadow is where your greatest path is, right? Because if you are in your light and you are so bright and radiant in those moments and you get shut down, right? This is just, as Nicole said, this is someone else's projection of you through their eyes of, I'm not that happy. Why does this person get to be that happy? And when we have very dysregulated parents or dysregulated people around us that really don't know themselves, and we are in our light and our brightness and our happiness and our desire and what we really want to do, that can be very confronting for those people, because who are they to do this, right? And so that's where, when we move through the evolution of time, as we evolve as a soul, as we sit here and we talk about our shadow right now in this time and space dimension, it's really to know that behind those doors, there's nothing to fear, because what's there is, like, your greatest expansion. And so when we say, like, I'm scared of the shadow, it's scared to go into the shadow, that holds an energy in the body. And when we start to shift it to be like, what's behind that door that someone didn't want me to know about myself? Because behind that door is your perfect pure expression of what your soul wants, right? Of what you want to do in each moment. Yeah, self-awareness can be so uncomfortable, but we have to be willing to look with love. And this is the piece of it where, when I meet those parts where, like, say someone said something to me and I react, and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? I instantly felt this charge in my body that, like, I got hot, or I felt like I wanted to say something, but I bit my tongue and was like, okay, where is this coming from? Those reactions, right, that we see in reflection of being with another person are just showing us, right, the doorway to that which we haven't opened and embraced with love. We're still scared to be that version or that part of ourselves. And so I like to think of all these little parts that we put away as, like, little children abandoned, because really every way in which we were not held when we cried, or we were having a big emotion and it was uncomfortable for our parents, and they were like, can you just stop? Like, what can I do to make you happy? Like, it was uncomfortable for you to be in your big emotion, and they tried to change it and distort it so that they wouldn't feel uncomfortable, like they were doing something wrong. Because the truth is kids are meant to have big emotions, right? You're meant to cry, you're meant to laugh, you're meant to move through this emotional cycle so that every time you move through it, you know that you can return to yourself and you're safe, that you can work through it. But the moment that's disturbed and disrupted, we're shown that it's not safe to feel this way. And so we lock away that little part and we're like, okay, it's not safe for me to actually be sad about this experience. Like you broke your favorite toy. And your parents are like, it's so silly, it's a toy, like get another one. And they're like, in your head, you're like, but that was my toy. Why is that silly? Like that was my favorite thing in the world, right? And so by shrugging off those moments, we are told that it's silly from a cultural standpoint, right? Or from whatever it is. And then now that thing that we loved, we're like, it's not okay for me to love that thing. And it's not okay for me to feel sadness. And so we start to repress and push away experiences that would just allow us to move through our life in more wholeness. And so think of all of these moments when, you know, you feel a charge in your body. Any charge that is not pure expression of love is going to be a shadow. That's what it's going to be because the light has not illuminated it yet. So you just get to sit with it. And I often just like, I know my intuition's so strong before my mind gets in. I'm like, what is this from? And I will feel it, right? And either I'll be brought to a past experience or I'll just be brought to a feeling in my body. And I'll be like, okay, I just get to sit with this feeling until it runs its course. And sometimes you'll just want to cry for no reason, right? Sometimes you'll just like want to laugh hysterically, right? You'll just want to feel an emotion. And for those of us that don't know how to feel our emotions, right, it can be very challenging. And that's where like I really love to do yoga nidra. And I actually have my Awakening the Elements course is the one that goes through the 5 elements and the emotional cycles of the 5 elements, and then putting you in yoga nidra so you can rise and fall with anger, with grief, with like overexcitement, with all of the emotions of the organs. But when you learn how to rise and fall with your emotions and let them see the course through, right, you're reprogramming that part of your mind that once was told it's not safe to go through this emotional experience, right? It's not safe to act this way. Because when you can do that and rise and fall through it and return to your right center, you are building your muscle of trusting yourself to open those doorways and to see those shadow parts, those abandoned children that were just playing and they got shut down and now they're just crying and they feel all alone. And you get to say, no, you're not alone. I love you. You can be this way. It's totally okay. Hina said, oh my God, that is such a trigger for me. Sometimes I feel I can be this way with others because I was never taught it's okay to have the big emotions. I've been trying to reteach myself this. And that is how we learn it, right? We start to sit with other people's experience without judging it, right? And we start to hold that capacity to hold our circumstances that are around us. You're healing my inner child with everything you're saying. Yeah, Kina said the best nidras. Those were so impactful for me, and I constantly go back to them. Yeah, it's so important. It's so important to know how to move through your emotions. And so you're opening all these doors to these shadows, which are just beautiful abandoned children that are like lost in the kingdom, that are like, please, 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 like, I just want to be held again. And you're giving yourself the capacity to love these parts of yourself that were not loved the way they needed to be loved. And this is where we get to reparent ourselves. It was like the greatest gift because the truth is in life, you can't expect anyone to be any way for you or do anything for you or think that they're going to fill up your cup or that, you know, love is through something other than yourself. When you learn that you are your own parent, that you are your own healer, that you are your own source of love, that you are your own source of creativity, source of inspiration, source of knowledge, right? What you're doing is you're empowering yourself. Right, you're putting yourself in the driver's seat so that you can, right, be available to yourself when things arise, because things will arise. And the more and more you start to open these doors of your shadow, right, being like, okay, I'm ready to see what's here, what's behind the veil of that which I perceived was not how I should be, or feel, or think, or act, or do whatever, right? And just hold it in love. And then you'll start to realize that when you go to work and someone says something to you and it's just not okay for you to hear that, or to be in a conversation where, you know, people like the way that modern day people talk and like really provocatively and like rude, and you know, it's like that's not okay to say those things, right? And to speak up and to actually stand in your truth and not subscribe to detrimental ways to be a human, right? You start to empower yourself to be, right, that force for you of speaking your truth, of showering love, right? Even if the circumstances are hard. And so that's what we're really cultivating in this practice. It's really knowing that yoga is confronting, knowing that we're going to meet parts of ourselves that we might not have wanted to see, right? And these parts live in our body because the whole body is mapped out, right? The traumas in the body are from, right, the mind. And so if we didn't feel safe in our body, right, whether it's physical safety, like we always felt sick as a child, or, when we got sick, our parents freaked out and we're like, oh my God, like, all the things. And then like, that was like, you were scared as a child. You're like, wow, they don't think I'm okay. Like, this is not good. When my daughter gets sick, I'm like, cool, let's lay down. And I don't make a big deal out of it because she's going to get better, right? It's like not a big deal. Everyone gets sick. And so when she gets sick, she's not a baby. She's just like, oh, okay. She just sits there and is sick, drinks the stuff, like does the thing. Days later, she's fine, no big deal. And then she has no fear of getting sick, right? And so that fear that we adopt, that it's not okay to be sick, or that it's we don't feel safe because we don't have enough money, or we can't provide for ourselves, whatever the stories, right? Because we can adopt them from the family dynamics, ancestry, right? We can adopt them from how we saw our caregivers, how we saw the world, our peers, how we saw like the institutions, right? That will all show up in your hips. That's going to live in your hips. And so when we do that deep hip work, there's a lot that can come up, a lot of this like primal needs of feeling safe and where we didn't feel safe. So that can be emotional. Those fears can come up and you get to sit with them, right? And let yourself move through them, right? When it's like the right arm and things are showing up in the right arm and it's like busting out, it's like, where are you overdoing it in the world, right? How many deals are you making in the world? How busy are you, right? What does your office look like? Are you swamped with a schedule? Like, this is going to start to blow out if you're not giving yourself the space. And so in all the ways your body is mapped out with different characteristics of your mind. And when things show up in these parts of the body, right, these overcompensation parts are the parts where these shadows are living, because you have shown yourself that you need to overmuscle it, or you need to overdo it, or, whatever way it's happening in your body. And so that's why when you start to move your body and you stretch out these parts of your body that are like held in darkness, it's so intense, right? And so when we're doing a good practice, like that will come up. And we have to learn to not see it as something to be in fear of, but as an opening of our arms of, wow, I get to bring back this part of me for some reason that got left behind, and I get to see who that is. And so every day when we do this, we become more and more and more and more of ourselves. And like, I don't know about you guys, but when I do this work, I'm like, who am I going to be in a year? Like, I'm so excited to meet myself. Like, who's that person going to be when I'm on this path? And so like, that's like the same feeling I feel with my daughter. I'm like, you've changed so much. Like, who are you going to be in 10 years? You're going to be completely different. And that's how we tend to spring, right? And this spring is this vital energy. It is the energy of growth. It is the energy of evolution. It is the energy of expansion. And so when we can keep evolving and keep growing through these practices of opening to our shadow, of knowing that there are parts that are held in darkness because, right, we weren't fully ready to bring them through into our reality, when we know that, it's like, oh, this is where I get to grow and expand, right? This is where I get to tend to the spring of my life, where it's going to be like a more vital part of my life. Because when we stay stagnant and complacent and it's always the same every day, we don't unwind time. And that's what you're doing with the shadow. You're unwinding time to place yourself in the field of the times in which you got taken away from yourself, right? You were told it was not okay to be yourself. Because when you come into this planet, your soul knows. It knows, and it comes into a specific matrix because that's also your greatest work, so that you can become more of yourself. And so it actually will be the most challenging to be with your family. It will be the most challenging to be in relationship, especially when you're doing this practice and looking at this stuff, because you will start to see that, like Kina said, like it's really intense to be in self-awareness. Because the moment your partner bothers you, you get to be like, this is me. I did this. What is this trying to show me? Right? You can't be like, I can't believe you did that to me. I can't believe you said that to me. It's like, what is alive inside of me that this was a match to? Because it's not that this person is not going to be a match. It's that you're going to bring out parts of this person where you have wounds to heal. right? Every person's going to do that for you. Your friends are going to do that for you. Your family's going to do that for you. Anytime you're bothered by what is in front of you, right? This is where your needs were not met and where you have an opportunity to meet your own needs in that moment. And that's why these are like, it's great to be like on the beach perfectly happy and just like, oh my God, so in love with what is around you. But it's even better in the evolutionary sense to sit in front of an uncomfortable situation and to be like, oh my God, this is an opportunity for me to heal something. I'm so grateful to open this door. What is behind here? Because what's behind here is something that I get to bring back to myself that's going to allow me to be more of who I am. And when you are more of who you are, everything expands, right? When you are more of who you are, the right opportunities come in at every moment. Life gets easier and easier and easier. And that's why when you align your body, you will align your mind. Your life will align because you are working through this darkness. You are working through the tension that is held in your body from the places that you never felt safe, right? And you get to meet that safety for yourself. And what happens is that you start to change. The people around you could change form. There can be different people around you, or you get to reflect to them a different, right, version, a different part that gets to be awakened. So you get to also lift others up and not hold them in those lower frequencies. And that's why this work can get so deep and so profound, because you get an opportunity to not just heal yourself, but to hold healing for others so that you can set the conditions for them to heal themselves as well. And that's where it's so beautiful, and where the shadow gets to be like a place where you get to bring more light in, right? And when there's more illumination, right? Light is our food source. Light is our sustenance. Light is that which grows and evolves and transforms and transmutes all things. And so, we're talking about our perception. Our perception of the events is how we're coloring it from past experiences. If you think your partner's going to show up one way, they will. If you're like, I got to erase this story, like, how am I going to clear this and know that this partner actually has an opportunity to show up anyway? I don't need to think they're going to show up anyway so that the magic can come through. Because when we think we know what to expect, that's what we get. And when we don't know what to expect, we leave room for magic to come in, right? The mystery to come in. And yes, we will always be at the mercy of other people's projections, right? People are always projecting on you, like, oh, this person, like, I can't tell you how many people look at me when I eat meat and they're like, I thought you were a vegan. It's because I do yoga. I'm like, no, I've been a meat eater for a very long time, right? And so those are projections. It's like, whether it's a projection that they hold about a specific thing, right, which is kind of like the stereotype or whatever, whether it's a projection of their own unmet needs and they're projecting that upon you. So if like they had a mother that never took care of them when they were sick, and then they project that upon you when they get sick, they're always gonna be like, you never do enough for me, right? That's the projection. That's like how they think you're going to show up, just like you have those projections about others. And so we don't have to worry about other people's projections. We really don't, because you can't worry about other people, right? All you can do is worry about your own projections, right? What are you projecting onto others? How are you thinking that others are going to show up, right? So we can have projections of male figures. We can have projections of female figures. We can have all these sorts of projections based on past experiences that we project out, right? Because our minds are creating our reality. And unfortunately, people around us will become a match to that projection. So we're bringing out those parts of them, just like they're going to try to do that to us. It's just like a hall of mirrors, right? And so this is where you get to be really clear on the people in front of you. Like, I expect people to show up in their most beautiful, vibrant selves. And I don't think that they're going to show up in a specific way. And in the moment I do feel that, like, it comes through where I'm like, oh, never do the dishes, right? Never going to do the dishes. It's like, oh, okay, this is coming through right now. Why do I have this projection that my partner or that my child or whatever isn't helping me out? Because I think that I need to do everything myself, right? And so I always expect people around me to fail, so that I never really need anyone around me. So they can go very deep. And so you get to play with this. And since this is only a 30-minute call, it's a very deep topic. But since many of you were asking about it, I did want to bring it through. And the other thing someone asked was about children. Why are they our strongest mirrors? Children actually have mirror neurons, so they're always mirroring you. So children are really beautiful to play this game with, your inner game with the self, of like, okay, what is living inside of me? Because this child will reflect it so perfectly. right? And so that's why our children bother us. We love them, right? And they're so beautiful. And then there's moments where we're like, oh my God, right? Because how we were parented will show up in how we are reacting to our children, right? And so that's where we get to do all the work, right? Of like, oh, this child is singing right now. I'm going to listen to her, even though I'm like, didn't sleep last night, right? Right? Because I don't need to keep projecting or recreating past experiences from my own childhood. And so this is where when your child shows you something where you're super triggered or you want to react so bad, right? Where you have to bite your tongue, step back and be like, if I was this child, right? Because it's showing you your childhood. Like, this is how my parent, my caregiver, whoever it was treating me, right? And so we really get to unwind so much through having kids. And that's why having kids is like the relationships and kids are your greatest sources of awakening. And it will be the hardest, right? I could sit and send voice memos to Kina all day talking about all the things we talk about all the time. I love it, right? It's just an illumination of light. But the moment you get me in a room with my family, right, what comes up? It's like, oh my God. And so we really get to do the most work when it's the most uncomfortable. And again, what you're opening is you're opening the shadow. You're opening the doorway to parts of you that want to be illuminated by the light, that are ready to be welcomed home, or they wouldn't be there, right? You wouldn't be ready. Your nervous system wouldn't be ready to calibrate the experience until you are ready. And that's what this practice is doing. It's stabilizing you so you are ready again to bring in, and it'll just get more intense because you'll start to unwind deeper layers. But when you free those shadow parts, when you call back home these things that I wanted to paint, let me paint, and you start painting, and like your body is unwinding, the trauma is releasing because you're saying yes to what you wanted to do that you were told no, go sit and write or go to school or whatever it was. And so you start to say yes to these childish things that maybe your soul is like, I'm meant to do this. I don't care what anyone says. It's like yoga. I started doing handstands on the wall when I was 3 years old. And my mom was like, I'm putting her in gymnastics. And when I was 22 and I was sitting in my accounting firm, and I was like, I told the partners, I'm like, I'm going to quit because all I want to do is yoga. They were like, that's so silly. And I was like, I don't care. I have to do it because my soul wants me to. This is not helping me, right? And so those silly things can often be your calling, right? It could be what you are meant to share, even if the world thinks it's crazy, and they probably will. So the goal is to have and feel safe with the full expression of ourselves, no matter what those around us project or feel. Yes, absolutely. And so this is where, when we are working on feeling safe and being ourselves, what happens is you have a stronger polarity, right? It's a charge. And so when we're complacent and apathetic and we don't care, we're very neutral. We have no charge. It's like whatever comes in, comes out, whatever. When we know who we are, when we are getting clear on who we are, we will repel people and we will magnetize people, right? So a lot of people may leave. A lot of people will come, and it will feel better because you will know. There's nothing that brings more love out of me than chats with you. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, I like Jasmine wrote goal. Yes. So what we're doing in this practice is we are looking at ways in which we can heal the parts that we were told were not allowed to be there, because there are parts of you that were always meant to be there, because it is you. It is your soul. It was what you were here to do. And when we come to the practice, yoga will change you, because yes, it will be confrontational. Yes, you will start to look at the things around you differently. Yes, you will start to question things. You will even start to question if reality is even real, right? Of course you will, because you were told specific things that who knows? Who knows if dinosaurs were here? Who knows if the earth is round? Who knows, right? And so all we can do is have a best guess. But what we can know is that inside of ourselves, we have to live inside of ourselves. And so if I have to live inside of myself and meet myself every day, I better feel excited. I better feel curious. I better know that it's going to be hard, because there's no walk in the park to be a human, right? I want my body to feel good so I don't have to think about it. I don't want it to fall apart. And if it does, like it did, I want to be able to have the tools to bounce back up quickly, like I did, right? I want to know that I have a community of people that are speaking my same language, so that when I say, who knows if the earth is round, they're not all like, you're crazy. And even if they are, they're like, I'm going to question it too, right? And so we really start to um, allow ourselves to come home to ourselves in whatever way that may be without an expectation of what that looks like, because you don't know. You really just don't know. And also, you know by feeling, right? Because you'll start to feel things. We should always question everything. Never take anything at face value. If we stop being curious, we have the illusion that we know it all and we'll never grow. Yes, the one thing you can know is that you know nothing. Hello, Catherine. And so I really just kind of wanted to bring this through because, it feels irresponsible to teach yoga without saying, like, yes, things are going to come up. And I hope I have tools for you to help you so that when you're like, I don't know if I can do my job anymore, I hate it, I'm like, you got this. What do you want to do? What would your soul love? Are you willing to do it no matter what? Are you willing to never give up on it? Right? And so you learn to build this muscle of trust with yourself, because when you can trust yourself, it's like, even if you move to a different place, you're like, I got this. I've done it a million times. I know how to build this muscle of trust. I've got myself. I can do this, right? Rather than like, oh, it's too hard. I don't know how I'm going to do, right? You're always held. You're always held. And when you come more and more into yourself, you will never be able to go back, right? It's a deal. You will not be able to unsee what you start to see. And so the gift and the curse of awareness is that you cannot become ignorant again. There's no way. If your partner doesn't look inside himself and doesn't look at his projections, so does the pure part of ourselves just say, yes, okay, this is what it is. This is where it gets complicated. This is where you have to decide what you want in a partner. And you have to believe that that's for you beyond a shadow of a doubt. You have to feel what it feels like to have someone show up in that way that you desire, that your soul desires, right? And so when we do this, and if our partner is like, oh, why aren't they looking at themselves? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? What aren't you doing, right? We have to turn the tables back and not worry about them and recalibrate ourselves so that we know what we want. When you know what you want, this person in front of you, which is just a projection of you or a mirror, or like you are projecting your reality at every moment, you've called this person in, they will either rise into that or they won't, but you will know because you will know what you want. And this is where, like, we do have this responsibility to ourselves to get really clear on what we want for work, what we want for relationship, what we want for finances, what we want for every aspect of our life, every single aspect. And when we can get clear with ourselves in that, right, our circumstances can't help but meet that. But if we don't believe that we deserve that, our circumstances will meet our beliefs always. And so this is where these practices really have to build your muscle of trust and of knowing, and you knowing yourself and what you want. And you already know what your future holds. You know what your highest timeline is. So when you just keep tapping into that timeline, right, that timeline will come to you. And so you have to know that it's for you, because if it's on your heart, it's for you. And that doubting part is a different timeline. That's like, I don't have enough to do that. I'm not strong enough. I'm not capable enough. And we need to clear that doubting timeline by constantly recalibrating to, oh, I am worthy of this. I do desire this. And you find yourself in the frequency of people that are doing that. And you start to learn their techniques and their tools, because that is how you keep to those higher timelines. If I hung out with a bunch of people that were down all the time, I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk about this, right? Like, you really, really, really get to get clear on what you want, and all those people will come, right? You don't have to worry about micromanaging what is outside of you. All you have to worry about doing is constantly anchoring in what you desire, what you know is true for you, right? Keep visioning it, keep acting towards it, right? Act towards it. That's what the key part is, right? Of moving your needle towards that thing that you want no matter what. So if you hate your job and you're like, well, I have to pay all these bills, find a way to make a second income stream online, right? Like, you can do anything right now. It's incredible. But you have to know that there's going to be trade-offs, and that there's going to be recalibration, and that things are going to change, and everything could just change around you and it could still look the same. You know what I mean? Like, the people will start to change, perhaps. And so it really gets to be magical that you just get to play with it. It's like, how am I going to play with a canvas in front of me and know that nothing that I do is set in stone, and know that the more I look into these shadow parts that are telling me I'm not worthy, unloved, abandoned, not good enough, not ready to like express myself on this planet, whatever it is, right? That you have to keep opening and holding yourself in that and be like, oh no, you are worthy. You are so loved. Hold that little child, love her or him to death, right? Just love, 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 love. That's all that there is in light, right? And so that's what we get to do, is we get to illuminate those parts. So, dear ones, I feel like we like to use others as a distraction. We don't truly believe to our core it's the simplest things that make the biggest shifts. Otherwise, we'd all be spending way more time sitting in that visualization of our highest timeline. And there's so many ways that culture has distracted us, right? My friend like texted me about the politics the other day, was going crazy, and I was like, why are you paying attention to this? Go do something for yourself. Go do yoga. I'm not being ignorant, but I'm saying don't tune into this, right? Tune into your reality, right? No one outside of you is in control of you. All you can do is make yourself a better person so that those around you will also get the opportunity to rise into their better person rather than ruminating on what you perceive is not right in the world, right? You're not here to change the world. You're here to change your world. And when you keep tuning into that, what I desire, you're going to change the world. Of course, right? It's ripples that come together to create tsunamis that wipe out continents, right? That change so much so quickly. And so you have to believe that you're powerful. You have to believe that every thought is turning into energy and that is materializing in front of you. And so if that was the case and you said you had a thought and it was in front of you, wouldn't you be careful of what you were thinking, right? Of what you were sharing with people? You would start to put a filter on everything that was not what you really wanted. And you would, and not in a bad way, right? You're filtering out the negativity and the garbage. And you are coming so clear with yourself and being like, if I was so worthy of love, that's all I would think. And that's all that would arise. Tuning in rather than to all the crazy, they will continue. Yeah, everyone wants your mind. I've said it to you a million times. Everybody wants your mind. Don't give it to them. Right? Everyone wants your power. Don't give it to them. That you hold your power. You hold your mind. You hold responsibility for your body. You can give it away, but it's not going to serve you. So this is a longer call. When the replay gets posted, and if you're in the replay, comment below, right? Comment below anything. We have a conversation around the shadow. It's big. This is like a whole course of like dealing with the shadow because it is so big. And also, it doesn't have to be so complicated. You really just get to open doors and be like, I love you. Instead of reacting, let me sit in non-judgment and just be observant and hold more love than I ever thought possible, right? I've had some things thrown my way this year that were like, I, as a human, did not want to sit in love. And I was like, okay, I get to sit in non-judgmental love. And I actually tapped into the deepest love I have ever felt in my entire life. And you would never think that with what was in front of me, you know, but this is the work. This is the work. And it's like, what a gift. What a gift that we get to choose. Even if in front of us, someone is fighting us, telling us the worst things in the world. And we're like, I just choose to love. Like, what's the point in doing anything else? Because love is the only truth. So maybe I'll share stories with you one day, but now is not the time. I love you all so much. This is a long call. I hope it was helpful. Right? If you have any questions again. Oh, hi, Jesse. Thank you for this amazing chat. I love that. Saying I love you, so that gentle with ourselves and others. Yeah, it's the only way. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you next Wednesday. Remember, I just launched my free series on Revolutionize Your Body for your optimal alignment. So, of course, many of you like really love the yoga practice and are here to like transform your body. These are the deeper philosophical layers, but make sure you join me in this free series. I will post the link on this replay, and this is a 3-day series that's going to go through the philosophy of your body. It's going to go through practice together live, which of course there'll be replays up for 2 weeks, and then a breathwork practice so that you can really experience and explore the uniform design of your body. And so I'm really excited to do this series with you, for you. To be live with you is so much fun. Like, I know in my studio, I get my little virtual community and I post the call or the classes and stuff like that, but live will be so fun. So make sure you sign up for that. I'll post the link here, and I will see you next Wednesday, all of you. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day.